this example, we'll connect Tableau Desktop to the MyDataHelps export database and build a simple visualization, like this. Here's Fitbit resting heart rate that was collected with MyDataHelps, graphed over time for a selected participant. Now, using this approach, I can explore and visualize all my data in MyDataHelps without writing code, using SQL, or manipulating files. Visualizations like this can be refreshed with a click as new data becomes available. Here are the steps I'm going to follow. First, I'm going to get credentials for the MyDataHelps export database from MyDataHelps Designer. And next, I'll use those credentials to connect Tableau to MyDataHelps. And finally, I'll make this simple visualization in Tableau using my data from MyDataHelps. I'm going to get started in MyDataHelps Designer. The Export Explorer is available on the Settings tab of MyDataHelps Designer. I can run queries here and see the results here. But if I'd like to have this experience without writing SQL and in my preferred dashboarding application, in this case, Tableau Desktop, I can gather the instructions that I need with the External Connection tab, which is here. The first section, Connection Information, has 5 pieces of information that I'll need to create an ODBC data source. The second section, Authentication, has a blue Create Credentials button. Click the button to obtain a set of temporary credentials with an ID, key, and token. These credentials provide access to MyDataHelps for 12 hours. Tomorrow I can repeat this process to get updated credentials. The third section has a link to the database driver I'll need. Click the link and run the setup program for your OS. Now I'll use the connection and authentication information that I've gathered to create an ODBC data source. Run the ODBC Data Source Administrator, then click Add to add a new data source. I'll select the Simba Athena ODBC driver that I've just installed, and I'll copy over each of the settings that I've gathered from the connection information section of MyDataHelps Designer. Now I'll open Tableau Desktop. Under Connect to a Server, I'll select Other Databases, ODBC, and then select the data source name that I've just created and click Connect. And then sign in. Under Database, select AWS Data Catalog. In the Schema Search text box, if I just press Enter, it will search and give me a list of all the schemas that I have access to, which should be just one for my project. Similarly, in the Table Search text box, if I just press Enter, I'll get a list of all the table names I have access to. These tables represent all the different concepts that I'm currently exporting out of MyDataHelps, and they're up to date as of the latest time that I've exported that concept. In this example, I want to graph resting heart rate. So I will find and select the Fitbit daily data table and drag it over. In the preview window, I can see the columns that are in that table on the left, and on the right, I can get a preview of the rows that are available in that table. And now that we've built a Tableau data source, we can proceed with building a quick visualization. I'll find the resting heart rate column in that table and drag it over to rows and change the aggregation to average. And then pull over date into columns and change the display format to day. And this visualization probably makes sense only in the context of a single participant. So I'll filter by participant identifier so that I can select a single participant of interest. In this case, my data set only has one participant. But that's it. Now I have a cool visualization of the resting heart rate concept presented over time. Because we've selected a live connection for our data source, my visualization will automatically update if I run a MyDataHelps export and produce new data. Because the access key and token provided is a temporary credential that works for 12 hours, If I open Tableau tomorrow or next week, I'll need to create a new set of temporary credentials in MyDataHelps Designer, and then update the user connection information in my ODBC data source like this. And we've just scratched the surface in this resting heart rate example of the data that's available to us. Any participant, survey, or wearable data that I can export from MyDataHelps can be used to build visualizations or dashboards in Tableau with just a few clicks and without any code, SQL, or manipulating files.